Welcome back. Cattlemen sometimes seem to have their feet in two worlds: the modern, constantly changing, globalized world, and the one that values our industry's unique history and traditions. Cattleman to Cattleman's Brian Baxter reports from Missouri on one industry leader who successfully blends the old and the new.
We've been here in this part since 1822 and 24 on land grants. We're still here and we still got cattle and we still enjoy it.
David Dick has deep roots in the town of Sedalia, Missouri. His family settled here nearly 2 centuries ago and began working cattle at about the same time. Additionally, David's been active in the community since he was a teenager.
Oh, I do a lot of different things. I'm chairman of Soil and Water District, which is kind of interesting in itself. I've been sexton of Calvary Cemetery since I think 2002. And that's interesting in itself, in that they asked me to do that primarily because most of those folks that are already there in the cemetery are my ancestors. The interesting part of that is the genealogy side of it. You get calls from all over the country and we're looking for great aunt or great uncle or great 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 grandpa, and are they there and what's it say on the tombstone and that kind of stuff. So you get to meet or become acquainted with a lot of people through that aspect of it.
He's quite a historian. He loves history, going back and finding out about things in the neighborhood or in the county. I don't think a lot of people think that much about their communities.
David's day job is the Missouri State Fair, an event that draws about 400,000 people every summer. He's currently the fair's treasurer and holds the dual positions of livestock and beef cattle superintendent.
As the general livestock superintendent, I see all 19 livestock departments. That in itself is interesting because, I'm not real familiar with rabbits or llamas, but, knew a little bit about sheep, knew a little bit about some of the other stuff, the hogs, but wasn't really familiar with the rest of it, so that in itself was kind of interesting.
Something David knows well is the cattle industry. He's active in his county junior livestock association and extension council. He also chairs the Federation of State Beef Councils, which oversees the reinvestment of state checkoff dollars into national demand-driving programs. Missouri, he says, has a long history of supporting the checkoff.
Most of the folks here in this state have their herds of cattle are less than 20, 25, somewhere in that range. And they've always been interested in making sure that, number one, the marketplace is free and open. And then number two, that their product has a place on the store shelf and that folks want to buy it after it gets there. So it's always been, they understand the business model of it, and I think they understand that the checkoff is a very key part of that business model.
David is also hands-on when it comes to his cattle. He and his father run a cow-calf operation.
The deal with the cattle is you get to see your genetics perform over time. I mean, like these heifers here, those are decisions that I made probably 5 or 10 years ago as to bulls and what I was looking for on down the road. And we've always liked the bigger cattle, and so I guess I just like seeing whether what I see and what I like pans out or not.
Wearing all these hats keeps David on the move, traveling constantly and even answering calls from other Federation officers while checking on his herd. But that volunteer spirit has also brought him in contact with people from across the industry and given him a far-reaching perspective.
The beef industry, as I've been able to see it, as I've been exposed to the different aspects of it, it's very resilient. It's vibrant. The folks that are in it really like what they do, and they're very professional and painstakingly careful about how they manage their resources and how they manage their cattle. I mean, it's both things are kind of integral to them making a profit, and if they don't protect both things, then they aren't going to be in business for very long.
David is also concerned about the amount of capital it now takes to start a cattle operation, as well as the financial challenges facing the next generation.
It used to be pretty easy to get into the cattle deal, pretty easy to get in, pretty easy to get out, and I'd say now it's probably not nearly easy enough to get into. It's still easy to get out of, but I'd say probably that's the biggest change. The age, we're beginning to age, the folks that are involved in this business, so it's probably the fact that we need to be mindful about getting the young folks started and how you do that, and that's actually a dollars and cents capital issue.
And David thinks it's important for producers to remember that they are in the food business, a fact that is sometimes overlooked.
It's all about the cattle and how many head and how many dollars and cents, but ultimately we're in the meat business. And when you're in the food business, that's kind of a position of trust. And you need to remember that you have this trust. And we do have a good trust with our consumer, but I think we just need to remember that we're in the meat business more than we are the cattle business.
David is working to make sure his community and the cattle industry continue to thrive. And he says it's been fun watching people he's known since childhood come into the industry.
There's always a surprise in that the kids that usually sometimes don't ever act like they were interested in that calf or that pig or that lamb wind up being really interested in it, after they get married and have kids of their own, which is always kind of fun to watch that second and almost sometimes third generation now come back into the process that I went through when I was a kid. And I do that primarily because somebody did it when I was a kid, and so it's kind of giving back.
Reporting from Sedalia, Missouri, I'm Brian Baxter for NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.